Welcome to the Sweep Baseball Podcast, where we talk all the big stories in college baseball from the past week. Definitely haven't started recording after some conference tournaments have already gotten underway. Definitely not the case. But we are doing this right before that, and we'll just jump into what's been going on in the rankings. Most recently, the past week, major news was, I think, North Carolina winning that series on the road versus Florida State, what we had pegged as the 2 versus 3. Now separated a little bit more. North Carolina staying in that 2 spot because LSU held serve with winning a series at South Carolina. Florida State dropping back a little bit down to 7. Now maybe out of top 8 seed for hosting contention. Definitely still a host, but probably not at this point getting to that Super Regionals hosting conversation. Could fight their way back in if they do well in the conference tournament. They have yet to play, even from our side of things. But yeah, North Carolina seems like they've secured a top 8 spot as well right now.
Yeah, it was incredibly impressive weekend from North Carolina. Came out hot those first two games and absolutely dominated. Wasn't expecting to see that, especially when first game of the weekend you're going to be going up against Jamie Arnold. Tough to put up those type of numbers, but they did it, and yeah, super explosive offense that weekend, and yeah, very impressive to see. It seems like North Carolina's clicking at the right time. Had that slow stretch in the middle of the year, but certainly hot right now and peaking at the right time.
Yep, definitely. It seems like their pitching staff is really coming together as well. Yeah, like you mentioned, they were able to get to Jamie Arnold late into his outing and get him out probably earlier than Florida State wanted, and then able to attack the bullpen there, which is kind of what you need to do against Florida State on that, I guess, Thursday game, the first game of the series. So, yeah, North Carolina did all they needed to do. Similarly, a team in the top 5 for us last week was Oregon. They were able to sweep at Iowa to secure the conference title. Technically, it's shared with UCLA, but Oregon does have that head-to-head series win, so seems like they should get the full rights to that, even though they don't. But yeah, just continue to be on a hot streak right now, and it's coming in a lot of different ways. It looks like the pitching staff has really solidified the past few weeks. Yeah, just overall, this Oregon team looks like a complete squad at this point in the season.
Yeah, just a really impressive home stretch from Oregon there. It seemed like there just wasn't going to be enough time for them to make the comeback in the conference standings, but able to sweep that final weekend and, claim a share of the Big Ten title. And this is a team that a month ago was 57 in the RPI, now all the way up to 12 just a month later, looking like they're solidified as a host. Depending on the conference tourney, could creep up into a national seed in the top 8 there, but yeah, certainly should be hosting right now. And yeah, just an incredible last month from them.
Yep, definitely. And now looking at another team that did sweep a weekend series a little bit further down in our rankings is Southern Miss, jumping up 4 spots from 18 to 14, sweeping at Troy, a team that hadn't lost a series all year, at least a weekend series. And for Southern Miss to come in and sweep them, super impressive. Just shows that they were the team to beat in the conference. And even though Troy was messing around and winning their weekend series, still racking up a lot of losses, and eventually that'll bite you. And here it did with Southern Miss finally able to put the hammer on them, and Troy dropped back pretty significantly in our rankings because of that. Now that they have 19 losses.
Yeah, I thought Southern Miss would take this series. Wasn't expecting them to sweep and kind of dominate the way they did there. Prior to this weekend, yeah, Troy had I think the most losses of any team in our top 25, which is surprising for a mid-major. But like you said, they hadn't dropped a weekend series. I think going into this weekend, every single conference series they won 2-1 though. They weren't pulling off any sweeps. They were just scraping by, winning those series, and yeah, it looks like Southern Miss at the moment is probably the most complete team in that conference and really showed it over the weekend.
Yeah, definitely. And next, I want to talk about one of the teams that we have jumping into our top 25 at 16, so making a pretty significant jump here, but that's just based off a lot of teams kind of in the back end not doing great, and also just because of how hot this team is. And of course, I'm talking about Florida. Started what, like 1-11 in conference, and now 15-15. Just ridiculous stuff, especially for being in the SEC. to be able to turn things around that substantially is ridiculous. That's why they're jumping up all the way to 16 for us, beating now what was 19 Alabama, now 23. But yeah, there's a reason we didn't drop Alabama out of the rankings because of this series loss, and that's because Florida has just been so hot. They have been racking up injuries, similarly with what we saw like Texas was doing, just somehow are able to win games even with the injuries. But seems like Florida may be starting to get healthier, at least the next few weeks going into the postseason should be getting a little bit healthier, so that should negate some of the negatives there. But yeah, this Florida team just piping hot right now.
Yeah, I mean, the Florida's an interesting team, interesting program. It seems like every single year they find a way to underperform, but also make Omaha at the same time. Doesn't really make sense, but uh, credit to credit to Kevin Sullivan and the coaching job there. Somehow finds a way to turn it around and get his guys playing right at the end of the season. And yeah, I think we all thought this team was dead in the water at 1-11 in SEC play. That's something really difficult to turn around, especially with a lot of the difficult series they've had in the second half there, but found ways to win and pull off upsets. And here they are in hosting conversation all of a sudden.
Yeah, it's ridiculous that they have a pretty good chance of being a host now. Their RPI was always really good, even when they did have that horrendous start in conference. But you kind of look past that if they are doing that bad, and to turn the switch on and be able to turn things around and keep that RPI in a great spot can really put the committee in a tough position there for deciding one of those last spots, especially because there are several SEC teams that may be deserving of it, and you can't just have all of them in there at this point. But yeah, looking at some other teams that jumped into the rankings, we have two others: Georgia Tech and Kansas. Georgia Tech went on the road to Duke and won that series. Duke, another team that we had just on the outside looking in the past few weeks. So we thought that Duke would probably take that series, but Georgia Tech surprised us here, and by doing so comes back into the rankings. And similarly, Kansas had an amazing weekend, sweeping what was number 14 West Virginia on the road. This Kansas team has kind of bounced up and down recently at the back end of the rankings, but now with a 42-14 record, really solidified those wins there. Really impressive stuff, though. Now looking at West Virginia, a team that really hasn't won many games against good competition. Still only 13 losses, so still in our rankings for now at 24. But that does look to be a little bit of a concern now because they're not able to really rack up any wins here against good competition, especially at home here with Kansas.
Yeah, definitely problematic end of the season there for them. But yeah, the main team I want to highlight is Georgia Tech, like you mentioned, jumping back in the rankings here. Kind of an up and down season from them, but somehow come out on top of the ACC. It's an interesting situation because they don't really have any marquee series wins. They didn't play North Carolina, Florida State, or Wake Forest, so kind of had an easy ACC schedule. But credit to them for winning those games and winning the conference title in Danny Hall's last season at Georgia Tech. So a good send off for him. I think he won Conference Coach of the Year as well. I think that was announced either today or yesterday. So, props to him on a good career there, and awesome that they were able to end on a high note for him.
Yeah, it's really interesting. They were very under the radar for most of the season in the ACC. Just a team that, yeah, everybody knew they were talented, had the talent, but not necessarily the top teams talent-wise. And to be able to sneak up and grab that conference title is super impressive over teams like Florida State, North Carolina, even obviously Virginia preseason was the team to beat there. So to be able to go in, we're unranked in most places and still won the title. Definitely puts a little bit of a chip on your shoulder there as well to pull that off and not really have the buzz being around you and talked about. And even though you are one of the top teams in the conference and in the country for that case.
Yeah, I mean, not a lot of buzz around the team, but all of a sudden you're conference champions, you're feeling confident, and winning the ACC, that goes a long way to hosting as well. I think their RPI is up to 20 now, so feels like they're probably a lock to host given that they won the regular season title there. And suddenly, yeah, you're hosting at home and you're confident because you just won the conference title. So seems like anything's really possible for this team heading into the postseason here.
Yeah, it's definitely in the realm of possibility for them to be in the hosting conversation, especially if they go on a little run in the conference tournament here. But now looking at the other side of the coin, the teams that are beginning to show some cracks, we're looking at NC State, Oklahoma, and Tennessee, the three teams that dropped out of our rankings this week. I want to highlight Tennessee here especially. They were the number one team in our rankings for a few weeks, middle of the season around week 7. Started to struggle a little bit and then never picked back up from there. So it's been, like 6-7 straight weeks of continually going downwards and not trending in the right direction. And this is a team that, should be in hosting consideration looking at their overall resume, but just the way they're trending right now just puts them at a complete disadvantage for that if you're looking at, recent results instead of just the overall resume, which I think they should be. I think the committee should definitely take an eye on that, because if I'm looking at teams that are comparable like Florida, like Alabama, like Tennessee, which are three of the teams that are kind of in the back end of hosting conversation in the SEC, I'm definitely taking Florida, probably Alabama over this Tennessee squad just based off of recent results.
Yeah, I think they're just consistently moving down the pecking order there. 5 series losses in a row, 3 of them at home. I don't know how you reward a team like that with a hosting spot, I think they have to win the SEC tournament, at least make the finals in order to give them a hosting spot. It's crazy. The overall record still looks great, but they're just not winning those series at the later half of the season. And most of them are against solid teams, but if you're going to be one of the best teams in the country and have expectations of defending your national title the past season, then you have to win some of those series and pull it off.
Yeah, and it's just the way they're losing too. It's sloppy stuff, things that should be coached out of them. Just so many stolen bases, and yeah, when you do have the most talented team in the country, maybe that slides by. You can kind of get around that, but now as teams are around them and maybe are more talented than them, like we've seen this year, you can't have those little mental mistakes and just things like that build up, because that's just a bunch of losses right there, especially in conference where teams are looking to take advantage of any slight advantage they can grab from watching videos from teams and stuff like that. So seems like this Tennessee team needs to tighten up in a lot of different ways to go on a run here, but they do have the talent. Like we saw the first half of the season, they can put together a bunch of wins in a row to put them in consideration to be one of the top teams in the country, but right now they're really not showing it. Like you mentioned, NC State, Oklahoma, both teams also looked like they were in hosting conversation, now well out of it. NC State lost at home to Stanford, a series that they should be winning, maybe even sweeping, and if they do that, could have put them right back into hosting consideration, and that obviously did not happen. They won that first game and lost the next 2. Can't be doing that against a Stanford team that looked to be all that at the start of the year, but fell off very significantly after the first few weeks of conference play. And Oklahoma definitely haven't adjusted as well to the SEC as Texas has. But still decent. They're obviously still making the tournament, but did lose that series versus Texas at home. So have some ground to make up to put their name on things in the SEC.
Yeah, and one other team I'll point out for stumbling is UC Irvine. Still 18 in our rankings, so good spot ranking wise, but lost 2 of their last 3 weekends to kind of subpar opponents in the Big West, and just plummeted out of hosting conversation, really. Seemed like most of the year they were around like 10 to 15 in the RPI and, dominating the Big West for the most part. So seemed like they were a lock to host the entire season, and then surprisingly lost both or 2 of these last 3 series. Thought maybe they could afford one slip up, but certainly can't afford both of them. And all of a sudden, they're definitely going to be on the road. So tough luck at the end of the year there. We'll see if they're able to go on a run in the Big West tourney. Maybe try to get back in hosting conversation if they can take down some of the better teams in the conference there. But it's looking like it's going to be a tough road there.
Yeah, it's going to be tough to boost the RPI, especially against those first few teams that they might face, just no help there whatsoever with RPI help. But yeah, I mean, most likely going to be a 2 seed for a West Coast school. We're looking at UCLA, Oregon, and Oregon State as potential hosts there. So very easy to just throw UC Irvine in one of those spots and not think about it for the committee. So yeah, making things easy there and keeping the West Coast. Now that the Pac-12 is all broken up, can just jumble all the West Coast schools pretty much through that pipeline, and not have to worry about any teams traveling super far distances from the east to the west or something like that. But any other teams to mention in our top 25?
No, I don't think so. It's postseason time.
Yeah, way more important stuff to talk about. Don't even need to talk about the teams that are right on the outside looking in now, because this is probably, most likely, our last week of rankings. After this, we're just going to be talking about the tournament, the field of 64, all the important stuff, looking at the breakdown, predictions, previews of all that fun stuff. So a lot of exciting kind of new content that'll come out in the next few weeks. But this week, we can take a look at what we saw from our predictions. Not a great week, not awful, but missed on a few ones, especially looking at North Carolina, Florida State. Both of us had Florida State, North Carolina winning there. Made it up with Texas at Oklahoma and Oregon and Iowa, both getting those right. But similarly to that North Carolina, Florida State series, we both chose Duke at home versus Georgia Tech. And for all the series we predicted, all the road teams won. So very shocking one here. Usually it's very heavily weighted towards home teams, but in this instance, the exact opposite happens. And maybe that's because the better teams were on the road, but in some instances, not necessarily the case with our rankings, at least.
Yeah, I mean, definitely a little bit of an interesting weekend there. Usually not all the road teams are winning, but got one back on you with the Southern Miss picks, so trying to close things up here and see if I can get another one back on our tournament predictions, maybe.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll go through that now. I guess we'll go through the Power Four conferences, because that is now the case. We're no longer at 5, but we're looking at the SEC, the ACC, the Big 12, and the Big 10. Definitely none of them have started yet, so we can't rule out any of the teams that are playing. But usually, mostly with the SEC and ACC, they just have to go through such a rigorous schedule these next few days for those teams that are starting in the first round, likely not going to make it anyways, to the finals with 5 games in 6 days, something like that for some of these teams if they wanted to make a run super deep. But starting in the SEC, obviously it's easy to choose one of the teams that have a few buys here, which is exactly what I'm going to do. But we're looking at, obvious picks here: Texas, Arkansas, LSU, Vandy as the teams that get a few buys. But I do think there are probably going to be a few upsets from the previous rounds. I think Georgia might make a run here. Auburn looking really good. Who knows with Florida, with what they could do. I think it'll be definitely a lot harder since they have had to play an extra game. But I'm going to stick with Arkansas. I just think they're a team that, if they put it all together, we've been saying this for a while, looks like the best team in the country. I think these other teams all have their flaws in one way or another. Maybe not LSU. I think they're the second most complete team when they're putting it all together. But Texas, with their injuries, it's always going to be tough to overcome. And they have struggled a little bit recently. I've always been down on Vanderbilt, so not even going to consider them anyways. Georgia, they have had their struggles on the road, look dominant at home for the most part. But yeah, I don't know how deep of a run. I think they could definitely take down Vandy if they make it past their first round game against Oklahoma, but not sure if they can string any more wins together after that point. And the reason I like Arkansas the most is that I think that they'll take that first game, no matter if it's Florida or Ole Miss coming out of it. LSU, still a little nervous about facing Auburn if they make it to that round. I think Auburn definitely has a pretty good chance of coming out and winning that. So, just playing the odds here with Arkansas here.
Yeah, I pretty much have the same exact reasoning as you. I was looking at Georgia, Auburn as potential sleeper picks there. Also was thinking LSU, but didn't really like the way the bracket lined up for them. I think Arkansas might be in the best spot in this bracket, and I think Arkansas is the team I have the most confidence in. in this conference heading into the postseason. Obviously, Texas won the conference by 2 games, but a little injured at this point and not really peaking at this moment, I would say. I'm not sure Arkansas is necessarily peaking right now either, but I do think they have the highest ceiling. And so it's the team I have the most confidence in, and I like the way the bracket lines up for them. So I'm going with Arkansas as well.
Yeah, it definitely just seems like the easiest pick, which will obviously make it, they're gonna lose their first round game, of course. But now looking at the ACC, I think this one is extremely interesting just based off Georgia Tech taking that number one overall seed. Having Florida State and North Carolina potentially face off in the semis is extremely interesting, and hopefully we get to see that because that could be a great historic game there. Would be really fun, and I do think that that'll happen. But yeah, looking at the top of the bracket with Georgia Tech and NC State as the teams with the most buys, I don't know. It just doesn't stack up like the bottom half. I think there could be some upsets in the top where I do think Florida State and North Carolina are both going to make the semis. And then whichever team wins that game, I believe, will be the ACC tournament champion. I'm going with North Carolina here just based off of the fact that they did just come off that series win. I think they're going to have the confidence to come in and win that, but definitely could see Florida State with a chip on their shoulder coming in and taking that from North Carolina. But now that we're saying it, Georgia Tech continually having their chip on their shoulder here as the number one overall seed. Definitely could see them coming in and just blowing through the field because, people don't believe in them. But I'm sticking to my guns here with North Carolina.
Yeah, hard to imagine a number one seed being a sleeper pick, but Georgia Tech certainly is here. Like you mentioned, also hard to not see Florida State or North Carolina coming out of that bottom half. For that reason, I'm going to go for an upset pick in the top half. I like the way this bracket lines up for Clemson facing Virginia Tech in their first game. Win that. They're facing NC State, who talented ball club, but I like Clemson's chances there. And then they'll take whoever comes out of that Georgia Tech game. So it feels like a pretty favorable half for Clemson. I think they're arguably the best team in this conference when they're playing their best. And so right up there with North Carolina and Florida State talent-wise. They haven't been playing their best this last month or so, but I think this is an opportunity for them to get back to clicking. And I think Clemson's just one of those teams that really feeds off energy in the postseason environment. Cardiac Clemson, I think this is a chance for them to get going again. And so I'll take them to get hot here and, maybe solidify the hosting spot and maybe get back in top 8 conversation after falling a bit.
Yeah, it definitely lines up pretty well for them. Getting NC State after Virginia Tech, if that happens, it's definitely favorable for them. But need to turn the switch on. They have been, had their struggles recently, but yeah, Clemson, like you mentioned, definitely one of the top teams in the conference when they're putting it all together. And yeah, these moments it seems like they're made for consistently. So they should be able to make some sort of run, at least a little one. But now turning to the Big 12, which has just been a mess the entire season. It seems like nobody wants to win that conference, but somebody has to at this point. It's tough. West Virginia has that 1 seed. I'm just going to look right past them. I don't believe in them at all. I think that they could be upset in the first round by Cincinnati or Texas Tech. If Tech wins it, I think that's crazy that they're able, to even get past Cincinnati here. But we've seen before this Cincy team has been able to upset a decent amount of teams. We're looking at Duke preseason, have had a few just surprising conference results as well. And, West Virginia, I don't think would even be that much of a surprise if they beat them at this point with just how West Virginia's schedule has lined up. But my gut says here, going TCU. I do like Kansas a lot. They have put together a really solid run recently. But for some reason, just feeling like TCU will have this thing and win the conference tournament.
Yeah, I'm going to go back-to-back 5 seeds. I'm going up to Arizona State here. I just, once again, like the way the bracket lines up for them. I don't see them losing this game to BYU initially. And then Arizona has been stumbling the last couple weeks, so I like them in that matchup there against Arizona. And then, like you said, West Virginia, tough to have confidence in them necessarily coming out of that game as well. So Arizona State's the team I have the most confidence in that top half right now. And, a team that could use a run to solidify a postseason spot and maybe creep up into 2 seed conversations. So it feels like a team that, has incentive to go on a run here and I think has the opportunity given the way the bracket lines up.
Yeah, I think this bracket could really just anything can happen. I don't have any faith in any Big 12 team to be consistent at this point. We've seen it the entire year that any team can win any given day, and that just sets itself up for a crazy conference tournament here. So yeah, I feel like this one could be chaos, but me saying that, everything will just be chalk now. But now going to the last Power 4 conference, we're looking at the Big Ten. This one a little tougher to predict, just because there aren't a bunch of buys and we're not 100% sure exactly who's going to make it out of each, pool, since that's what they're working with here to make it to the semifinals. But it does give its way to having the top seeds make it out. If all the teams in a specific pool go 1-1, then the top seed just automatically goes through. So it leads itself to that a little bit more. And because of that, I'm gonna go with the number 1 overall seed that has looked the most consistent recently in Oregon. I think UCLA also has a really solid chance of winning this thing. They've looked pretty solid down the stretch as well. But Oregon has put together an extremely impressive past few weeks, going against some of the toughest competition they've faced the entire year and doing really well there. Has been very impressive, and I think that they are able to continue to follow through with that momentum and win the conference tournament here.
Yeah, this was a tough one for me. I really do feel like it's between Oregon and UCLA. Definitely the top 2 teams in this conference, both going to be hosting once the tournament comes out. I do like UCLA's side of the bracket more. If it goes chalk, they play Iowa in the semifinals, where Oregon will play USC. But it's hard to pick against Oregon with how hot they've been. So I'll go with the number 1 seed here as well. Go with Oregon, but yeah, it feels like it's between them and UCLA, and wouldn't be surprised to see UCLA pull it off.
Sweet. Well, with that, we have our predictions for the Power 4 conference tournaments. Should be very exciting week. I'll be watching throughout the entire day for all these tournaments and checking in on all the scores. But we can head into our player of the week right now. We had pitcher Justin Lampkin for A&M at Georgia, going 9 innings, 3 hits, 15 strikeouts. Just incredible stuff against a team at home that has pretty much looked unstoppable. The offense especially has looked incredibly impressive. So to limit them to 3 hits, no runs given up, and striking out 15 is ridiculous, and just shows how talented this A&M team is if they're clicking on all cylinders. But then they lose the 2 other games in the weekend and drop the series to Georgia, and most likely put them on the outside looking in when talking about the field of 64 for the tournament.
Yeah, I mean, super impressive performance, especially against Georgia. Like you said, it's one of the best offenses in the country, especially at home. I think they're top 5 in the country in runs scored for Power 4 conferences. And so, one of the best offenses out there is, I think it was one of our favorites coming into the year as a team that was just going to mash. And we saw the pitching clicking at some point too, but here we saw some pitching clicking on the other side. And so super impressive performance, especially tallying that many strikeouts against this team.
Yep, and now let's wrap things up with our play of the week.
Renzo in the air to left field. Long run for Zimbardo to the warning track, to the wall. He made the catch. He crashes into the fence and he catches. Yes, he did. Oh my goodness. What a finish. Zimbardo crashes into the wall to make the catch. Nerves of steel.
All right, here we had Jared Zimbardo for Notre Dame jumping into the wall to secure the win. Really impressive stuff to put your body on the line. And, this put them on the right track to win the series versus Miami. and make Miami on the outside looking in now for definitely hosting consideration, and who knows, maybe even outside of the field of 64 if they're not able to turn it around. This Miami team looked very, very hot at some points in the season, but have had their struggles, and if the committee sees it that way, they could definitely be one of the first teams on the outside looking in the field of 64, and this play could be one of those that you look back and say, if that ball does get down, who knows, Miami might be scoring there and tying the ball game, and that can completely change the entire makeup of the season, and they win that series if that's the case, and results hold in that sense. And Miami, might jump into the top 25, and then we're looking at a completely different story here. But this play put the body on the line, didn't care about what was going on, and able to secure the dub with that catch.
Yeah, huge play, crazy play, like you said, but definitely huge with just the implications there. Two teams trending in very different directions. Miami slumping to end the year. Notre Dame, 4 straight conference series wins. A team that looked dead in the water as far as postseason conversation, but all of a sudden have a pretty decent record in ACC play, just a game under 500. So they're able to win a game in the conference tourney. I think their RPI is like 41 right now. Miami down to 37 now, I believe. So after Notre Dame just took this series, feels like one of those things, if you're on the committee and you're looking at the bubble, Notre Dame just beat them. Notre Dame's trending better. It seems like you would give Notre Dame the nod over Miami right now. And so I think this play just actually had huge implications. So pretty awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it was on the Friday night game, so didn't know that going into it, but after the fact, looking back, it meant an extreme amount for both teams here. So if it means that much going down the stretch, there's just going to be even more plays like this the next week in the conference tournaments. This is huge week for college baseball. Everything's ramping up, and by this time next week, we'll have the field of 64 set and have a lot of stuff to review and talk about. So appreciate everybody tuning in this week, and we'll see you then for another episode of the Sweep Baseball Podcast. Peace.